I fed up.
Boy, I hungry.
Wait, come see that.
Take advantage of Perky's Pizza's college student discount. Spend $10 to $50 and get 10% off, or spend $51 and up for a 15% discount. Flash your ID and save big today.
Hello. Welcome. Good evening. Welcome to another show. It is Tuesday, the 24th of June, and I'm so happy to be joining you again here this evening for another exciting program. Share the live. Once you come on, make sure you hit that share button. Hi, Tara. I see you. Thank you very much, guys, for joining. It's so good to have you on here. On a Tuesday. I did promise you guys that I'll be having 3 shows this week. Hopefully, fingers and toes crossed. Hopefully, we have another one scheduled for tomorrow. But we're hoping that we can bring some content around health, and this is important. So I want to encourage you. You know, when it's Bethan's story, we just share it. So when it's important, things like things to do with health and wellness and spirituality, I want to encourage you guys to share the live even more so now than ever. Tag a friend, tag a man, like if you have a male friend that you absolutely love. It doesn't have to be somebody that you think might need it. It could just be somebody that you love, somebody you care about. Go ahead and tag them right now in the comment section and welcome them or invite them to the show. My name is Jael Joseph. This is Jael Joseph Live. And tonight I have two men joining me here on the program. So we have a youth advocate, Shervin Dominique. He's going to be joining me, as well as Mr. Lester Guy, who is a psychologist, will be joining me here on the program. So it's going to be a male dominated show this evening. Yes, indeed. I'm excited to speak with them. I want to learn. I want to know. I want to be informed. I also want to be able to, you know, Tara says she hopes to see the men come out. Men are very reluctant to listen to anything that has to do with their health. We know that. You can ask them to go and get a doctor's checkup until you blue in your face, and you might turn black in your face before they go. So we know that. And as women, if we have men in our lives, it is our duty to encourage them to do so. And if they don't do so, so I say, "Kwapo smoke their pipe." But we always have to be on them to ensure that they do so. And one of the ways we can ensure that they do so is by tagging them in the live, is by sharing it to their pages, is by sending it in their messages, sending it in their WhatsApp, letting them in on this, because this is an important conversation that needs to be had, and we need to get to the bottom of it, because we have a serious situation in Dominica, where or serious situations in Dominica where we're seeing a rise in violence among young men. We're seeing situations where we when we look around for example, Roseau, there's when you look at who's on the streets, mostly young boys are on the streets. On top of that, we hear of cases where people unalive themselves, and it's majority of the time it's men. So we're hoping that we can tap into them, we can connect with them, you can reach out right in the comfort of their own homes and probably offer them some advice. Well, I'm not the one that's going to be doing the advice, because you see me, all I know is about me and me alone, right? I hope that the expert who joins us here this evening, well, I know he's going to definitely give you advice and tips and tricks and whatever is there to be given, on why, on how you can definitely take care of your mental health. I don't want to waste any time, because the time is tick tocking and we don't want to sleep on us. We want to make sure we get all of the information in. So without further ado, I want to welcome to the show for the very first time. Or actually, it's Chevy's not the first time here. Chevy's been on here before. Actually, they both have been on here before. So they're regulars. We don't even have to give them no big high scene welcome. They're regulars. So I want to welcome to the show Shervin Dominique first. I'm going to bring him on first. Hi, Shervin.
Good night, Jael. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well, thanks. Can't complain.
Good, good, good. Shervin, before I introduce or bring on Mr. Guy, I want you to do a little bit of an introduction of yourself, who you are. So tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, good night, viewers. For those on Jael's show tonight, I am Shervin Dominique. I am the youth leader of the St. Anne's Parish. I'm currently one of the young persons in Dominica who got the 2022 Youth Leadership Award, and that was a very, very shocking moment for me in my life. I never knew that I would receive such a big award, because whenever I do things in life, I do it humbly, I do it with my whole heart, is because as a young person, I want to better mentor myself and better mentor the young people of Dominica.
Wonderful. Are you also part of the Leo Club and
Yes, I
all
am
of these
part of the
things?
Leaders Club.
So whenever we have our junior monarchers on this show,
Yes,
Sherwin is the one that has helped from the inception to
yes.
organize and get them on the show. So welcome. It's good to have you here on the show. And I want to welcome now Mr. Lester Guy. Mr. Guy, turn on your camera so we can bring you on. Hi, Mr. Guy.
Hi, Jael. It's nice to be on the show again.
It's good to have you on here with us. I know you're like a regular. You feel like a regular, not you? It's
Yes,
good
I
to
do.
have you on. Can you introduce the audience to who you are? Let them know a little bit about who you are.
All right, so my name is Lester Guy. I have a master's in health psychology. Um, wow, I've been the National HIV and AIDS Response Program coordinator for the past almost decade. Right now, I am the coordinator at Gender Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
I also am the founder of it's a small counseling service that I provide, which is called Jael Psycho Support Services. And I am an advocate by heart, I should say. I have been in so many different things at so many different stages in my life, Jael. I think I have interacted with so many people on so many different levels that a lot of people know me in different capacity. I think the last time I was on your show was actually with Astor Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the tutors that they use for caregivers for stroke patients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so essentially, I am almost with many tentacles because one of the beautiful things about health psychology it's focuses so much on not only on the psychosocial and psycho-emotional and behavioral aspect of health, but it looks at policy development, health training, capacity building, policy development. It also looks at the whole continuum of the healthcare from prevention to treatment, care, and support to rehabilitation. So I have been blessed, I should say, because I think probably maybe I should say that I've been in so many different forums and I've hardly heard much person from the Caribbean introducing themselves as a health psychologist. Most people probably clinical psychology, counseling psychology, educational psychology, social psychology. So when I decided to do a master's degree, I wanted to make sure it encompassed something that would be very useful and resourceful on all aspects of health in our smaller communities.
You're so smart. Not everybody smart like you, no?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like we have so many people going to study and do the same thing.
Yes.
Exactly. So I thought of it. I mean, I know that from a resource point of view, human resource point of view, sometimes we do struggle in the small island states like ours. So I actually wanted to also do it in the first world country, which I did in Southampton University in the UK, and it really broadened me, and I think it has placed me in a really succinct situation to be able to influence persons and to give back to my community as much as I possibly can from that from a health perspective. So it's a pleasure to be on the show, and it's always a pleasure to be able to share your knowledge, your insights with your general population. I know there are probably persons who are in diaspora also who are listening on your show. So it's a pleasure to be with you guys this evening.
Yes, I want to welcome everyone who's just coming on. I see Tara tagging everybody. Tag everyone. Tag the men in your life. Tag the bands. Tag the guys in entertainment. Tag because let me tell you, without the men, we can make children. Okay, so you need to tag them and be ready to listen. Be ready to take this in. Be ready to get the information. We want everybody in Dominica to know what is going on right now. We want to be able to share that information with them. I want to say before I continue, I want to say thank you very much to my sponsors. That's the National Cooperative Credit Union as well as Perky's Pizza. And I'll give them a little bit of a plug during the halfway point of the show. But Shervin, you reached out to me probably about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
About
2 weeks. 2 weeks
you,
about it.
you reached out to me and you were just like, Jael, I need to come on your show. We need to talk about men's health or men's mental health. Why? What triggered you? Like, what was going on with you?
Okay. The reason why I really wanted to speak about mental health because I could recall going through social media and then I saw one of my past teachers posted something on his page, which is Mr. Shannon Robin. And then I felt moved. You know, when it's something you feel moved to do something extra to bring attention to the mental health of men in Dominica. I felt moved, and then we had this men's symposium which occurred last Saturday. And after that, I just feel like all men need that attention in Dominica.
Okay, why do you say our men need attention? And again, I'm going to play devil's advocate with it.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, I had a few things to say at the start of the show, but like I'm not a man. So why, as from a male's perspective, I can have my opinion, but from a man's perspective, Why do you believe that there is a need for men to pay more attention to their mental health?
Because in Dominica, our mental health in Dominica is a crucial due to the societal pressure and stigma surrounding our mental health issues. And I think that engaging in this dialogue can help raise awareness and promote an understanding and encouragement to seek support for their mental well-being. Because a lot of our men are remaining in the silent background, they don't telling nobody anything, and then they suffer inside mentally without seeking the help that they need in their lives.
Did you have any of those experiences, like from a man's perspective? If you can share, if you
Well, okay, sure. I can share my perspective as a young man growing up. Yes, I have been facing challenges and facing different struggles in my life. But how I overcome these challenges as a Christian young man, I always face to God with all the struggles, with all the challenges that I face, because He's my answer. He's my rock, He's my refuge. Jael, you know me, I'm a below Catholic. So you know I have a strong relationship with God. I always believe that is a key intention to one's mental health. You have to have a relationship with Christ because a lot of people do not have that relationship with God. And whereas when things start to happen in their lives, they start to go and do all kind of nonsense and they do not seek the importance of Christ in their life.
so whenever things are going wrong on him, you call on him.
I call on him.
You literally call on him. He's your refuge.
Honestly, he's my refuge.
Okay.
Whenever I feel down, I play a gospel music, or I go on the porch, I dance to some music. I love to dance.
Hmm.
That is part of my stress reliever. Or I go for a walk,
Hmm.
or I call a friend. I call a close friend, and we have that serious conversation I can trust. Because you know, sometimes you open up to somebody, and you not everybody.
You know.
You breaking in and out, Shervin. You breaking in and out. Shervin, we lost you. We lost you. You breaking in and out. If you have headphones, grab your headphones. If you have headphones, okay. Yeah, because that's probably going to is going to continue where you break in and out. And then we're not hearing you right now. You just muted yourself. Speak, speak. Say something, Shervin. Yes, continue. Go ahead.
I would say that. You know, and whereas there's
You breaking up. You breaking up bad. You breaking up bad. You breaking up bad. You breaking up bad. We're gonna pause on you for a little bit. Probably just a little glitch. Probably just an internet drop. So because you started well, and I want to bring in Mr. Guy. I can often forget to say, sometimes I want to say Lester Guy, but it's Mr. Guy. He's in his capacity. So when people are in their capacity, when their capacity, I like them to call him Mr. Guy. It makes it more
You're fine.
serious.
It's good, fine.
Mr. Guy, what would you say your relationship is like with mental health in Dominica and men?
Well, what's my relationship is like with
What is your relationship with mental health? Like, how do you see mental health from men in Dominica?
I will say that just mental health itself in Dominica is a challenge. You know, there's a lot of stigma and discrimination surrounding mental health in Dominica. We've been trying our best to do a bit of advocacy and mental health awareness. I know that Sherwin spoke about um, a Boys to Men engagement that they had at UE recently. And I think about a month ago, we also had some men. We had a special guy there who would spend some time with us, and we were talking about communication and relationship building. So I think we've gotten the ball rolling to an extent, and which is really cool. And let me even punch that in. Right now at the social services, we do have a young man who's also a counselor. So I think we are making some strides in that, and I'm really happy to do so. But I have to go back just a little bit, Jahel, with when I came back to Dominica in 2010. 2010. It's been a challenge, you know, with how you find that more women are seeking help as it relates to having mental health. Well, I don't want to always say mental health issues. There are psychological and emotional issues that surround mental health outside of having a mental illness, which is very important to make the line of demarcation in that. Because a lot of times when we talk about mental health, it's automatically interpreted as mental illness. And we have to clarify that. That when we talk about mental health, we're not necessarily talking about mental illness. Mental illness is part of what of the continuum when we talk about mental health. So somebody can really go through the line, the continuum line, and you can end up with a mental illness. And mental illness will surround stuff like mood disorders like depression and bipolar, and up to psychotic issues like schizophrenia. But what I think is the major issue with us is being able to identify where we are struggling with mental health itself before we delve into having to go to a specialist or psychiatric doctor because we are presented with symptoms or signs that are related to mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to also appreciate one of the things that have happened to us recently for the past decade. We have actually been very vulnerable to mental health issues because we suffered Erica, we suffered Maria, we also had issues with the COVID-19. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
itself gave us an opportunity to bring about more awareness with mental health issues because before we're going through our life, going through the normal rigmaroles of life and saying, you know what, things will pass over. But when you had back to back traumatic experiences where people were struggling to cope, then I think it brought to light how much we need to do and where we are, at what stage are we are as a community as it relates to mental health issues. So I will tell you right now, I've had a few men come through me as a private psychotherapist, and I find it very interesting. Although more women come, but there has been an influx of men who are seeking help. And surprisingly, it's not men who has mental health issues, it's just men that are struggling with circumstances. And they're saying, okay, I need to speak with someone to bring a little bit of clarity to it and see how I can work through it, how I can navigate through it. And I think that has been very good. And I also think I will say the psychiatric unit has also done a lot of activities during mental health time, and our international organizations have also done because recently there have been a lot of trainings done on psychological first aid. And what we've tried to do is also get the community involved. So we're looking more at not just a health system-based approach, but a health and community approach. And that is making its headway. I will tell you that. It's very interesting
Mm-hmm.
how now, women are bringing their young men or the young boys and say, okay, Mr. Guy, I'm struggling with behavioral issues. He's struggling with behavioral issues. He's struggling with concentrating at school. Can you help? And I know some of my other colleagues who are also psychotherapists and psychologists and counselors are also getting young men to come through. So I believe there's a lot more to be done. But what it has
Mm-hmm.
done with persons like with my personality, where I am just the guy you'll meet on the street and laughing and joking and be by the domino table, talking and having fun with my friends, that people realize that they can connect with you. And that is very important for us in a Caribbean setting, where
Mm-hmm.
men are still reluctant to go to a medical professional or healthcare professional, mental healthcare professional, because they feel that you have your stuff together because you're the one they're gonna save the tie and you're the ones who's at the office and you sit down and you cross your leg. And one of the things that I've tried advocating for from an individual basis, and when I do a lot of presentation with young persons and young men, and I let them feel that you can talk to someone who you can identify with, who comes across a little rugged, but also has the best interest and they have the knowledge base. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that has helped a lot as to why men are reaching out. I don't know how I know they're reaching out to other psychotherapists, but I know a lot of men are reaching out to me because of that. I can identify with you. You're down to earth. And I think
Yes.
if you sometimes tell it that way, being professional, ethical, and confidential, that men will feel a little more comfortable coming and speak with you.
Yeah, I think that is one of the big issues, that we have in not just in Dominica but in the Caribbean on a whole. There's a lot of pride as it relates. So I don't really want to talk my business to you because you're gonna tell it to my
Oh, okay, that's okay because it gives me an idea of so how you're saying things also. Oh, she's
tell somebody something in confidence, want to tell your business, but they will be talking about a scenario and your situation comes up, and they might not even call your name, but somebody instantly knows who they're talking to, and what, boom bam bing, your business on the road, right? And I some people might say, oh, we don't exercise enough privacy,
oh she she got cut off. You can hear me?
I don't know what happened. We lost everybody for a second, but everybody came back.
Yeah,
We lost
yeah, yeah. We're
everybody for
back.
a second. I don't know if you heard my question, but I can always go back.
Yeah,
So my question really was, what role does Dominican culture play in how men approach or even avoid healthcare? Because I feel like we talk about men are reluctant, they don't want to go to like, but how does the culture impact that?
I
that's you're asking me or you're asking the young man? Because I think you.
I'm asking you.
Okay, so good. So I had quite an interesting discussion with that same question some time back at a panel discussion at UE. And we have to also take it from a cultural perspective, Jael, and for those who are listening. We are sons and daughters of slaves, yeah, although we're in the 21st century, but culture is something that transcends
of,
over
of the
generations.
enslaved,
I'm
of
sorry?
the enslaved,
Of the enslaved.
of the
Of the
enslaved.
enslaved. Yeah? All right. Thank you for the correction.
Our ancestors were not slaves; they were
The
enslaved.
enslaves. All right. So thank you
Right.
for teaching me something to be
Right.
politically correct right now. Yeah? Things are changing so quickly. So you have to somewhat appreciate that we've been cultured in a way where we deal with our stuff. We deal with the challenges that are in front of us because we are supposed to have been strong from the time that we were on the farms. And if we are not strong, and if we not hold back as to if we are not functioning emotionally, psychologically proper, the slave master is going to get rid of us.
Mhm.
And sometimes we never think of it that way. And this has passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, generational
But
trauma.
if you realize, a
Hmm.
lot of times, if persons are going through psychological issues, even right now in their workspaces, they don't want anybody to know. They don't even want their boss men to know.
Hmm.
Because chances are they'll ask you to stay home and have yourself checked, and you may lose a few days at work and you have to feed your family.
Hmm.
So it stems from even from that perspective. And
Mm.
you will realize that it's very apparent with black men because we are children of people who were enslaved, as you said. Yes?
Hmm.
So we have to put up that front because it's very easy. I'm not saying in the more developed countries that men are not seeking psychological help, but guess what? In the bigger countries, if you have to look at the history of psychology, a lot of men were psychologists and psychotherapists. The great Freud, Eric Erikson, all of those guys. So they were in societies where they were actually doing work, and they were men. Right now, predominantly, you will see that there are women psychotherapists and psychologists around. I'm one
Mm.
of the only males.
I know. I was about to say that you're, if not the only,
Exactly.
right?
Because the tide has changed.
Hmm.
So we who are from the Caribbean setting, Afro Caribbean persons, we were cultured in a way that we have to learn to deal with our stuff without having to step into a healthcare facility for a mental health specialist.
Hmm.
And that's why sometimes men act out so easily because they don't get someone to walk them through what they're going through. And it becomes so overwhelming for them. And the easiest way sometimes is to act out.
I love that you say that. And I want to encourage the audience, the people who are listening, to at any time chime in. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, if you have any stories to share, share it in the comment section. And don't be shy. But what you said is so important because and I want to, but that's why I want to bring in Shervin at this point. I know, like, we have this, I don't know if it's a situation or what it is, where men are told you have to be tough, you have to be rough, you can't show no emotions. What you crying for? You're a man. What you crying for? A big man like you. What you crying for? You're not supposed to cry. By toughen up. Get rid of those tears. These are the kinds of things that we enforce in our men, in our boys. And we make them to believe, and that's something that I do not practice in my household. I let my kids be, and people are always, because people probably look at me as somebody who's rough and tough, and I don't mess around, don't play with me, and you will hear my tongue, right? But my boys, if you meet my boys, I mean, Shervin has met my son. My boys are so gentle and so, like, so in tune with people's emotions. Like my youngest today, he got awarded for being kind-hearted and always helpful. Because I try to teach them, both me and their dad, we try to teach them that it's okay to be sad and it's okay to cry and it's okay to share how you're feeling. Sharon, for you, do you think that gender norms in Dominica discourage men from talking about their emotions?
Well, we have that saying that men supposed to be macho, they supposed to be taught about. Why I believe that we as people in society, we supposed to speak to our young men better than give them that support that that do some of the time that are on the passionate. I believe we as people in being with us and our, like what you said, I'm trying with your children, that you are teaching them how to be kind, how to be loving, because you engage with people on a day-to-day basis. Whereas for me, I engage with customers, I speak to customers from a day-to-day basis. I make customers feel love, feel appreciated, because one word can change somebody's entire mood around. And I always believe in that type of capacity.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Mr. Guy, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I am Miss Compliment, Moi toujours qu'à compliment, whether it's a man or a woman, and people don't even understand how much of a difference you can make in somebody's day, in somebody's moment, by just offering a compliment. I'll give you my trick, right? People always wonder. I always get such wonderful service when I'm at the airport. I've been bumped from economy to business class many times. Just because when I get there, no matter who you be, you gonna get a compliment. I'm gonna tell you something sweet. I'm gonna butter you up. And let me tell you, I've had instances where people at the front desk, men and women, as a matter of fact, just recently, a guy in Barbados, he said to me, I was having such a bad day, and you like a ray of sunshine. You came and you just made me feel so much better. And they end up waving. I didn't have to pay for luggage. I didn't have to, like, I just get bumped up. And I do it for my benefit, but I also feel like it helps someone else, and to be, because they can see you're being genuine, they can see you're being authentic, and you are making their day better. Mr. Guy, what do you have to say about, in terms of how we discourage men about talking about their emotions in Dominica?
So great. So let me use that example, which I think is very pertinent in this discussion. So I had a client yesterday who came through, and the person was presented with, some mental issues, and they were struggling with acceptance. And the person said to me, I was struggling with acceptance all along, and then I reached out to one of my faith-based leaders, my pastor, my priest, and he said to me, until we reach at a stage where, and the person comes from a religious background, And a lot of times mental illnesses are affiliated with evil stuff sometimes. Is
Yeah, so Tabioni, just say it. No, are you trying to make it too
yeah,
politically correct?
right.
Say it as it is, because people
So
don't understand when we keep it simple, stupid. Right?
right. So
It's
there's a lack of acceptance sometimes with the mental illness among certain faith-based organizations. And the person said, "Well, I spoke to my faith-based leader, and he said to me, until we reach at a stage where none of us are going to get sick, I can understand why you wouldn't want to accept that you're actually sick." And I'm saying that to say, until we reach at a point in life where men who are made up of flesh and blood, thinking, feelings, feels that they have no emotions,
mm-hmm.
then we can talk about men not showing emotions. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Until we reach at a stage where men has become robots, then it's okay to say that men shouldn't show emotions.
What
So
are you mentioned that one scenario, but what are some of the cases you see? Like, what are some of the in men, like what are some of, like what are some of the cases that come up where their mental health is concerned? Because you say, they were having some issues and they went to their faith base, um their pastor or their leader, and obviously, I mean, the concern is that, like I kind of want to know what, or I think we want to know what are men really struggling with in terms of their mental health. What are some of the triggers that will pose an issue to them, and that you would end up seeing them, whether you see them in your capacity, or whether they end up at the hospital.
there are a lot of different things that present themselves. I think some of the same thing that women present with, men do present with. Yeah.
Mm.
Anxiety is one of the things that I find a lot of men are presenting with right now.
Men are anxious.
Oh yes, men are presenting with anxiety, and are struggling with it. Yeah.
Really?
Um, as we talk about emotions,
I have never heard a man say he's anxious. I've never heard a man. God is my witness. I've never heard a man say, "Oh my God, I'm anxious." I hear women.
yeah, man, men do with anxiety. One of the other things that men do come with, especially when they've lost a relationship, that comes up a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Um, and yesterday I was in a training with some younger persons, and a young lady was saying she has a very good friend, and he kept telling her, what, love music not for me. And she's saying, what's wrong? Why love music isn't for you? She says, because the love music plays on his emotion and it makes him mushy. And he doesn't like it, so he don't want to listen to love music. And you see where the misconception is with
Mhm.
our young men and men, because they don't want to tap into their emotions.
Is it a fair? Is it
They have been somewhat given the impression, and it comes from their peers, that if you're an emotional person, that you're weak.
or you're not heterosexual?
Not even necessarily, because even we, like heterosexual friends that I have, if you act a specific way because the music is specific, boy, that's Celine Dion hit me. First checking, like, what you talking about, my boy?
So that's what I'm telling you, that a lot of heterosexual, like, they will tell you that if you show emotions, you might be a homosexual. So you cannot show your emotions.
Not necessarily that.
Really?
It would be more about your self.
You
Because
soft.
I don't think, and we do use the word, we don't even say soft, we say soft.
Stuff.
Soft,
Yes,
boy,
you
a
do.
little music that play now, you like that. You
Yes.
understand? So it's not really even about sexuality or homosexuality. It's just that because we are taught, okay, it's okay. Let me give you a typical example. Right now at my age, if I'm watching a movie that hits my emotion, a little thing that have me,
You feel, just be afraid to cry.
right now I let it go. The little tears, can I laugh in? I laugh with it because I'm not comfortable with myself.
Mhm.
A few
But it
years
took you
ago,
a while.
right? A few years ago, it was different. It's like,
Mhm.
bro, a movie watching you waving like that.
Shervin
You
is
understand?
Shervin is smiling. Shervin, you've had that happen to you?
Well, in my opinion, yes, this type of thing happened to me where I literally started to cry and laugh at the same time because it was very, very.
Yeah, and what I do right now, Jael, I laugh at it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm so comfortable with, okay, bro, it means that you are in tune with yourself. So I laugh at it. But guess what? I have a son. I have a 20-year-old son.
A
And I don't
2 year.
want him to go through life feeling that you have to be Mr. Tough and you have all of this stuff bottled up inside you.
Mm-hmm.
And it releases itself at the wrong time where it's uncontrollable.
Yes, and we see a lot of those pent up emotions resulting in things like domestic abuse, like all of these things, and it's because there's no outlet, or there's a lack thereof, or the fear of having an outlet causes them to react in that way. And I mean, wh- like I'm really interested to know, like what can we do, like what really can we do. But before we get into what can we do, because I'm sure you have a lot of answers, and um, I'm interested to know about any because you spoke about some of the myths. You spoke about anxiety. I want to know about more of the other issues that we see in terms of mental health, or even any myths or misconception that we find that Dominican men are challenged with.
So, I mean, if you go to the psychiatric unit right now, you meet a lot of young men who are drug-induced psychosis. That's a major thing. Yeah. And albeit some people may see it differently, right now we know that with this decriminalize marijuana, there's an increased use of cannabis consumption by young men.
And you think that is a problem? That is one of the
I
problems.
personally think it's an issue because we were already having a lot of young men who are admitted to the psychiatric unit for drug-induced psychosis. And right now, remember, I'm not saying there's something wrong. Remember, use of any type of psychotropic drug, it might work for me and it might not work for you, and people have to learn to accept that.
I want to play devil's advocate on,
No
because
problem. I
I'm
love
a
that you're actually going to do that. Yeah.
so I've lived in Canada,
Right.
and can the Canadian government also decriminalized marijuana back in 2017. And following the decriminalization, the records or the data that they've collected have shown that there's less usage of marijuana than before.
Ah,
So I find it quite alarming that the opposite has happened, because the understanding is that once something is forbidden, it becomes more attractive. It's like everybody wants. I mean, look at Eve. Eve wanted to grab on that fruit and bite into it because it was forbidden. Got all of the fruits in the garden, but she decided it's that one she want. They tell her it's a forbidden. Once something is forbidden, I feel like people tend to want it even more, right? And I believe that that's why the data shows that, because now people are just like, there's no flex in like smoking a joint. Like you have to really want to do it for you to do it, because you can pull up on the side of the road now in Canada anywhere and smoke your joint, right? Why is that the case in Dominica? And I'm interested to know.
so good. Again, you have to look at context of countries. Yeah, these countries are a lot more resourceful. Um, with the decriminalizing of marijuana in certain of these countries, there are limitations that they place on the use, if it's for medicinal use and so on, and they have the resources to guard that. So look at this. See a situation that we have in Dominica, for example. We decriminalize marijuana, and we see that persons can have X amount of trees at home, or X amount of cigarettes on their person, or X amount of ounces on their person. Yes? A lot of people right now, a lot of young men are having beyond that. Do we have the resources, the law enforcement resources, to be able to check that and keep it in guard? That's number one. Number two, if I ask you, anybody in Dominica, something that occurs with young men that somewhat stand out as a rite of passage into adulthood, what do you think comes up? You understand what I mean by rites of passage, yeah?
Yeah, like it's sort of like an initiation. It's
All
like when
right.
you feel like you're a
So, like
man.
your man, what do you think is one of the things that
I
a
would
lot
think
of men,
sex.
huh?
I would think sex. I
You
I would
think
think
it's
it.
sex.
I would.
You
I
think
would
it's sex.
think that's what I'm saying.
You think
Because,
it's sex.
but is that what it? Isn't that what it is?
That's a very good question. You must look around and figure out because a lot of these young men who are avid users of cannabis, sometimes after that they're just hanging around each other. Don't you realize that smoking? But anyway, I don't want to get into this social discussion because it might also be deemed as my opinion. You understand? So I just want to be careful in terms of that. But I see things,
Yes,
and you
and
have
I
to
was
understand.
about to ask you. I was about to ask you too. Like even with that discussion, and it's a. I mean, yeah, it's a social issue. It's a conversation that can become very much opinionated.
Exactly.
And with that, I want to ask you, because you are the coordinator at gender affairs. What are some of the things that are in place? I know you kind of probably you were not brought here in your capacity as that, but I'm interested to know what are some of the things that are being done in terms of gathering data or
Man,
data that you can without a doubt say, because you are talking about your opinion, and you see I have my opinion too, because as somebody who now and again, right, I don't see the impact that I mean, I've spoken to kids about it. I've spoken to them, about some of the things, because there can be negative impacts of it, or things that can, so I try to educate them, but I don't see it. I see it I see it as a herb, and that is how I've grown to embrace what it is. However, because it's helped with a lot of pain, right? However, in your role, what is being done to actively gather the information so that you can, without a doubt, state, and when you state it, nobody can come and say, you know what, Mr. Guy just talking about your nonsense there. That is not actually the case. We have the data to say in 21 constituencies, in 10 parishes, we've interviewed 125 men between the ages of 12 and 18, about their rites of passage into adulthood. And they have come up and said, and Shervin, you want to say something? Shervin, you wanted to say something? I see you putting up your hand to say something. So go ahead, Mr. Guy. What you were gonna say something, Shervin?
We were speaking about drugs, right? By being that alcohol has a huge defensive rating of legalizing Dominica as well. I find a lot of our youth are
So
taking
your audio is really bad. We're hearing bits and pieces. I strongly, if you can find somebody somewhere to be close by you to get you headphones, I strongly encourage you to do that, because we're having a hard time hearing you. It's not coming across clearly. And quite possibly is because the audio. And I realize that's been happening quite frequently with people who use their cell phones, and especially iPhones, and they don't have headphones. So if you can, please try and get that, because I know people want to hear what you're saying. People are actually saying on the live that, Shervin, we're not hearing you. It's not clear at all, and so on and so forth. Mr. Guy, you muted yourself. Sorry.
okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
Let me state that as a fact. I know because I worked at the psychiatric unit at some point in my life, and I know that the influx of young men who has been admitted to the psychiatric unit, at least 75 to 80% of them are drug-induced psychosis. It may, most of them are avid cannabis users. That's a fact, no matter how you look at it. So that is not something that's an opinion of mine. In terms of the rite of passage and so on, I'm just saying from my observation and how I've interacted with younger persons. Yeah. Now,
Hmm.
right now, there's a
Hmm.
cannabis committee that's looking at the medicinal use of cannabis. So there's some
And
sort of research.
regularizing it to some effect,
All right.
to some
Good.
extent, yes.
So this is it. Yeah, on that level. But again, you have to also be very careful Jael, when we talk about the use of stuff like marijuana, it is decriminalized, and not that marijuana is legalized, it's decriminalized to a certain extent. We actually are seeing that younger people are using it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I understand what you're saying.
Yes?
I mean,
No, let's be realistic. Let's be realistic. Because there are regulations with alcohol sale, you will find that if you go to a shop and the shopkeeper figure out that you're probably under 18 or under 16, they're not going to sell alcohol for you.
that
And it's
already not
something
Dominica. That doesn't really Dominica.
you'd think, but it's regularized, because that's the thing. If I send my son, who is, let's say I have a 14-year-old, and I send him to the shop, and the shopkeeper really has the best interest of that child at heart, will say, no, I know that you're underage, I'm not going to sell for you. And I'm very certain during carnival season, young children may have gotten away with it, but it's not all vendors are going to sell alcohol for young children. If you go to World Creole Music Festival, it's not all vendors are going to sell for a child
First of all,
with a dream.
a child have no business in World Korea Music Festival. Moving along.
Right, carnival, for example. Children may get away with it because a friend might go and buy a bottle for them and they have the bottle at the side of the street.
Mhm.
But all vendors, if a vendor is caught selling alcohol for an underage child, that vendor could be taken into task. I'm
Oh,
saying people don't
I've
take
not
the
heard
risk.
that
So
yet happening.
let me make that point. Let me make
I
that
have
point.
not heard it happening.
I'm just saying it's supposed to be regularized.
Mhm,
Terms the law says that. Good.
mhm.
The law says the same thing about the
Agreed.
decriminalization of marijuana. But guess what? Marijuana is not sold in business places. They're sold on the street. So the access to it for younger people, for boys who are under 16 and under 18, which is the legal age for buying alcohol, nobody's keeping track of it. That's the fact.
Mm.
That's not an opinion. That's a
Somebody has
fact.
somebody has a question. Are they adding other things into the cannabis when they're rolling it? And also, how was it grown? That is from Green Janal, and he's saying if you take Kool-Aid juice and add coconut water to it, is it still Kool-Aid?
Uh, so here's a very important point, and we don't want to move away from talking about mental health. We're just talking
I
about
mean,
things that affect our
but
mental
that
health.
is part of we you just said
Look at this.
85% of you said 85% of the people who end up at APU, men who end up at APU, is because most of them is because of marijuana. So I mean, we're talking about mental
No, I
health.
said I said they're drug-induced psychosis. Don't get me wrong.
Psychosis, yes, yes,
Good.
yes.
So,
Correct. Correct.
so
Sorry.
you also have to bear in mind that in the bigger countries, there are regulations
Mm-hmm,
stipulated.
mm-hmm,
You understand? So it
mm-hmm,
also means that if you're going to sell to the general public, you're going to sell in a bar, you're going to sell in a brothel, you're going to sell somewhere, that there is something that you need to show, okay, this is the content of what I have. But right now in Dominica, and what I didn't say Dominica, in the smaller islands like ourselves, St. Vincent, people just grow in the marijuana and they dry it and they sell it. Sometimes you don't even know if people are actually spiking the stuff they're selling for you if you don't get it directly from them and you have to chop it and do it on your own. You may buy a
mm-hmm,
split or cigarette from somebody and you don't know if it's spiked. So we have to take those things into consideration. When I said drug-induced psychosis, it may not necessarily always marijuana, but marijuana is also, it was established from a health perspective that marijuana is also a gateway drug,
mm-hmm,
no matter how you look at it, because it's a psychotropic substance, even though we say it's the herb that has affected people negatively at some point. Certain people's body constitution is different. I may be able to smoke three spliff for the day and I cool. Another person might smoke one spliff and you're seeing all kinds of things. Even when you eat brownies, sometimes people act up. Yeah? Good.
mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying that to say that we have to be very careful.
So you
Yeah?
mentioned one. You mentioned marijuana. What is the other?
Right.
What are the others?
We do have a lot of persons who use cocaine and crack also. So when I talk about drug-induced psychosis, and it's one of the things that I've learned in my years of being working in mental health. There are some people that certain psychotropic drugs don't go with. Just like there are some people, they will drink alcohol and they can maintain themselves, and some people, by the time they drink a little bit of alcohol, they're acting up. No, you have to learn your body to make sure that you don't find yourself a victim to any use of anything that's impeding on how you function. And we have to appreciate that. Yeah?
Mhm.
So, so let's say now we look at why men come to psychologists. I do mention anxiety. Sometimes coping under the circumstances of finances is one of the things that men also present with. You want to take care of your family, but you're trying your utmost best to make a dollar, and sometimes it's not working out. Especially if you don't have a dependable skill or you don't have a level of education where you have a steady job. And guess what? I had this quite interesting circumstance recently with somebody who came to me. It's an older gentleman who's retired, and he's struggling because his life was had so much structure in it moving forward, taking care of his children, making sure that they go to school, he had his job and so on. And right now he have a lot of time on his hand, and it's difficult for him. He's not sleeping, he's presenting with insomnia. And I've had a lot of men present with that also, where they're just not
That is
sleeping.
because they're unable to now continue their daily routine of going into work. And oh my God, that is
So you
crazy.
see, there's a lot of things we speak about, you know. I've had situations where men are struggling with their 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 spouse in terms of communication becomes a major thing.
When the communication become on the man side or the woman
Both
side?
sides, because
Tell
what
you, men cannot
you see,
communicate. That's why
sometimes men will say, but like I have this situation with one of the couples that I'm working with, and there is of you still don't understand me in the sense that this is how I function. But
yeah.
the woman might ask more. I want you to tell me a little more. I want you to be a little more affectionate. I want you to give
The
me a
love
little
language. We don't
all
we
those things. But sometimes you have to appreciate that people are socialized in a way, and it takes a little time for them to get to that point. And
it's funny you say that.
acknowledgement.
It's funny you say that. The other day I was talking to a friend and they were saying that, she was saying her love language is words of affirmation. That's her love language. But or yeah, words of affirmation, and also um like doing things for others. So in doing things for others, her partner, his love language is which she just learned, is physical touch. Now imagine in a house, I mean, they were going to marry, every time how she expresses how she cares about him is by doing things for him. He wants to be touched. Right? And that is it out of her whole heart. Like she's doing, and it's so thing, because how many of us go through relationships that could have worked, but it didn't because we were not able to figure each other out, and then the man gets anxious, he gets depressed because the relationship has crumbled. He probably invested so much time, and we're unable to tap into that part of understanding what that person needs, what that person
That's
requires to make them feel loved, and to make them feel like I
true.
so we need to have a like we need to teach in school understanding love languages. Yes, I'm sure.
Child. Yes, as you're speaking about love language, I believe that the generation behind us do not understand love. I believe that they feel that love, the first thing that comes to their mind, love is about having sex. Brap, brap, brap. I have sex with a woman, and we that is what they consider love. I believe the young generation, they don't really understand the concept of being in a relationship, because being in a relationship requires a lot of time, good communication, and understanding your partner. It's not about sex. Sex is always there. It's always there, but understanding your partner, having that relationship with your partner, understanding both you and your partner's side, I think that is a better way of forming a relationship, instead of just going to a girl and say, "Baby, you look nice. I want to have sex with you." It doesn't work like that. You have to know how to speak to a woman. You have to respect a woman. And I think that's why a lot
You
of boys.
But again, it goes down to what she needs and what she's looking for versus what he needs and what he's looking for. You might see we're talking on love now, we kind of segue, but in terms of like when we're looking at how people how mental issues can affect people's mental health, and like like some other things that Mr. Guy is saying there is so important to understand that it can happen to couples who've been together for eons, you together for decades, and the man, there's a breakdown in the man, and you wonder like what's going on, because what you think he needs is not what you're offering. And and sometimes it's not like you're not asking them, but they just, as a man who is not in touch with his emotions and not understanding that, he can't even tell you what he need. He can't even tell you, I just want you to touch me, I just want you to rub your hand on my back, I just want you to play in my beard, play in my hair. That is what I need. Because he doesn't even know. He doesn't even because he's so detached from his emotions that he doesn't understand that that is what will make him feel loved and feel cared for. And the enemy woman is coming home every day and cooking food and making sure his clothes nicely ironed and crisp. And he will probably go and cheat on her with somebody that just playing if his boot collar. Sorry, I said that. I don't know. I just had to.
That is,
Well,
I,
you
I,
were
I
telling
think
us about some.
I feel sometimes we have to be very honest, especially speaking from a man perspective. Sometimes all men do not take themselves, and whereas they have certain men who takes it very seriously, and there are certain men that need to pull up their socks.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
Like, it's not a joke, it's not a movie, it's serious. And if you tell yourself that you are one, you want to go into a relationship, you have to be very serious about it. And it requires sticking to one partner and not having multiple women. Because as a lot of men end up getting all the comical diseases and etc. Because it's so like they go after one, after one, after one. And that's how they end up getting. And whereas sticking to one partner is much healthier for you than than you want to yourself with how many partners.
Um. Okay. Um. Somebody just tried to join the live. I don't understand. Did Shervin, you send somebody to join the live for you? I'm not sure. Okay. So I wanna probably because Mr. Guy, you spoke about a few things that men go through, some of the struggles that they go through. Some points are very valid. Do you believe that um, like how accessible? Because I know you kind of mentioned it, but how accessible are mental health services for men on the island, especially those that are outside of Roseau? And I specifically say outside of Roseau for a reason.
Yeah, that's a nice question. Yeah, and we had that discussion today actually in the training that we were doing, gender-based violence and so on, and how people can access psychological support outside of the vicinity of Roseau. I would say for Roseau, we do have social services, and anybody
Mhm.
who needs psychological support can walk into the doors of this Department of Social Services, and we'll help you to navigate through the system to get help. That's established. But what we are trying to do right now, and we're looking at what we call a referral pathway, especially for mental health services, that across the island there are health centers. We have 49 health centers across the island, and there's nurses assigned to each and every one of these health centers. And all you need to do is walk into a healthcare setting, speak with your nurse, and she will refer you to the correct person or department that she needs to refer you to. I think she disappeared, yeah? Showing?
Yes, she did.
Yeah,
She
so I'm not
disappeared.
sure if the live is still on. Because if she disappeared, I'm not sure if her stuff is connected.
Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
happened.
So yeah, you can walk into
Yes.
any of the healthcare facilities in Dominica, and you
Mm-hmm.
can ask us to.
On the line. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Yes, I was
There we
saying,
go. Sorry. Yes.
Jael,
Go ahead.
you can walk into any of our healthcare facilities across the island and interact with a nurse, and she will direct you as to where help can come from. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's really unfortunate that we don't have centers across the island where, for example, Portsmouth Hospital should have at least a counselor assigned to there. Um, Most of our major health centers, and that was initially what we were hoping to do, that most of our type 3 health centers would have had at least a counselor or social worker assigned to them. But if you do go to any one of them and you need psychological help or mental health help, you can always get guidance from the nurse. But again, men are
I,
still
I
reluctant to go.
I think something too that can, and that is just me making a suggestion, and it's a wild suggestion, but I'm a bit wild. But including that in like guidance counseling schools, like how many schools actually have guidance counselors? Or I know SMA does. I don't know. I don't know about the other schools, and I think we need to start there because making young boys know that it's okay to talk about these things, it will help them grow into men who are more in touch and in tune with their emotions and are able to recognize when they need help without like what are your thoughts on that?
And that's a brilliant point, my dear. This for me is excellent. And I'll tell you why. Young men spend a lot of time with young men, and they're going to get advice, what is supposed to be the norm from other young men. What we need to do right now, and I was saying to the group of people I was speaking with today and yesterday, mothers, fathers, families, faith-based organizations have to start bringing the discussion to the forefront for young men to understand the importance of being in touch with themselves. And guess what? This little term that I'm just using, being in touch with themselves, if you go anywhere and you say that, the first thing that comes to people's mind is you soft to be in touch with yourself. You understand what I'm saying? From an emotional point of view. And probably I'm getting a little passionate about it because that's my thing. Yes? When we go to the churches, engagement of the young people, we need to bring those subjects or those topics to the front of the pew because that's where you're going to meet
Yeah,
them.
every Sunday is not, it don't have to just be about Bible and God,
Exactly.
and because people are falling up, people are crumbling, like
That's it.
people are crumbling, and they're not crumbling just because our economy is struggling, because our economy is not necessarily um immune to, like it's not like it's only happening in Dominica. Economies are being affected across the globe,
Uh-huh.
right? There's inflation, there's people are losing their jobs, people's jobs are being reassigned, people are moving away because of technology and AI,
Mm-hmm.
people are losing their jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that we have to understand, that the world is changing and we have to change as quickly as possible. We cannot just say and sit and say, oh, we're going to push the God inside of you, and as a result, yes, you can encourage it. However, in addition to encouraging it, you have to be able to bring these conversations to your youth ministers, your priest. Your priest should have a homily on mental health one of
And that's
these
the
days. Your
thing.
pastors, to speak about this and the importance of it, because we have young men unaliving themselves,
Uh-huh.
because they aren't able to cope,
So, and
right?
that's the
We
thing.
have young men who are cutting themselves in Dominica, right? And some older people don't even understand what cutting is. People who are just a little bit older than me don't understand what, they don't even know what cutting is, and they think to themselves, oh, they were playing basketball, or they were in a rough up situation and anything. And it's got them cheering, cutting themselves. Like when you see that, You need to be able to identify it. And how do you identify it? I cannot fathom how, and probably God, like, I'm not saying this in the worst of ways, so I hope people are not going to take this in the worst of ways, because I'm really not saying it that way. Like Mr. Guy, I am very busy. I am one of probably the most busiest moms that you would ever meet, right? I hustle for my living. I don't work a 9 to 5. I'm sometimes working around the clock, but I make it a point of duty. I always watching my kids. I always taking a look at them, taking a look at their features, taking a look at, what they how they how, even when I speak to them, how they behave, taking a look at different things, because I can tell if my child is being bullied at school. Oh yes, when it happened, I knew, right? Even before, I can. And if my child, God forbid, if my child is like, how can you not see that? How can you not see that your child is having a hard time? How can you do you sometimes even in all my business, sometimes I go and I lie down on Giovanni's bed, and I ask him, how was your day? What did you do? Any girls now? Like, I just ask random question. What chicky checking? No, just ask little questions like that, just so he is comfortable with speaking. And if he has a problem, he can come. And I mean, I don't want to say what he responds to me, because he'll tell me I'm embarrassing him. But he is very forthcoming when it comes to sharing. Sometimes he overshares. Oh my God, sometimes he overshares. But at least I feel like I know. So I'm appealing to parents, because
Yes.
right now, when you see men are old, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yep.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. When the man had back and he old and he in his 50s, and he's trying to tell you, you need to go and check your
Yeah.
mental health. He might be telling you, but what you talking about? What story that you're talking about? No, I don't want to go check my prostate. You want to come and talk about my mental health, right?
Yeah.
We have young boys coming up. We need to start there. We need to
You
start
have to engage
teaching.
them. You have to
You have
engage
to
them.
engage them. And you cannot
Yes.
just leave it for just the home. It has to happen in the schools. It
In the
has to happen
school,
in the
in the churches, you have
churches. It has to happen every single where. Shervin, you want to say something? I hope your audio is good.
Yes, I happy that you mentioned school because I believe that some of the students, yes, they go to school, but some of the teachers in the school put like that mental stress on the child because we don't know what the child is facing, what the child came to school. We don't know what the child is going to eat during this period of school that he comes to school because sometimes some teachers they approach children very, very badly. They put like an emotional stress on the child. I see it already in Dominica where children will be crying, children will be come up to me and say, "Sir, my
Shervin,
teacher
I
did
understand that,
this."
but I'll tell you that that is not isolated to Dominica. That happens everywhere. And remember, too, you're dealing with humans. So you might say the teacher is being hard on the child, but the teacher probably getting blows at their home. They're dealing with it too at their home, and they now have to come and green for a child, and the child not behaving, or the child not getting the lesson, and the child not. So I'm not trying to make excuses, but being an educator myself, I can be understanding that you cannot just look at one side of the coin. You have to flip it on the other side to see what's happening there, right? And in as much as, yes, your point is very valid, that sometimes teachers put a lot of pressure on students, and they cause students to crack underneath that pressure. We also as parents have to do our jobs in the home. So if you see, so I had a scenario, and I don't want to get into this scenario with my son, and we nip it in the butt right away, because we were able to recognize that there was a personality clash between him and a teacher. And it was easy to, I mean, now probably that is probably his favorite teacher. Probably, yeah, I say that very loosely. But he was able to overcome that hurdle. But that's because we were able to speak about it. We were able to talk about it. We were able to say, that you cannot say, I hate that teacher. That teacher, let me tell you, when I was growing up, I used to say, I hate that teacher. I can't stand that teacher. But teachers are human beings too. They go through their own shit at home, they have their own lives as well, right? And they have their own pressures that they go through. And imagine you coming there on a $1,200 salary that you still have to buy pencils and something for the child because the child don't bring his pencil. And I tell you, where's your book? And you don't have your book. And stay up all night preparing my lesson plan after I get my big thump in my head from my husband. You understand? Like I try to play
Mm.
devil's advocate in every situation. We can say one thing, but there's also another side to the story, and we
Sorry.
have to. I feel like our responsibility. You see, a teacher is not responsible for my child. A teacher is responsible for my child's education while my child is at school. I am responsible for my child, right? And I feel like as parents, we need to do our due diligence and tap in more and ask more questions. You know, you come home with get a little smell of marijuana on the child. You ask a question. You don't ask the question. They're going to say, "Oh, mommy, tebe, mommy don't smell that. Oh, mommy don't feel
Yeah.
that." The child come home. I know what time Giovanni is supposed to be at home. If Giovanni is 1 minute late, what happened? Like I ask questions. I don't play by those things, right? I don't play by those things. A reason being is that you don't know what happened there. And there's no way for you to know if you don't ask. You ask a question. And I believe strongly. I mean, this is a conversation that we can continue for hours. And I really don't want us to go past the 9 o'clock mark because
I know.
we're on here for a while and then the conversation becomes a dragging conversation. What I would want us to do is I would really want, and I know, Mr. Guy, you've spoken to me about this in the past, or you said you wanted to talk to me about this, is how we can put together something where we can. I would prefer it to be an an educational moment, but it's not a long half an hour, not an hour, but we can take a 20 minutes and we can come on and we can talk to parents, we can talk to students, we can talk to because that way it's starting now. Those all had back. Yeah, we hope that they can learn from those things, and we don't want to leave them out. We don't want to leave them out, but it's harder to teach them new tricks. It's harder to force them to come in and get help. But when they see it happening, or when they are forced to do it for their children because they're understanding more, their children are able to come to them more and talk to them, then hopefully they can take a stand and look after themselves.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm trying my best to push forward, is that organizations allow persons like myself to come and have the discussion, Jael. You know, I've been to the Adventist Church on numerous occasions just to talk about mental health, talk about just life with the children. Because their
So the other
conversation
denominations also.
is just to have conversation with the children. I remember one of the things that the church asked me to do some time ago, and it was quite fruitful. There is a chasm between how the children communicate with the adults in the church. There is this big gap, and we were discussing what can be done to mitigate that. And they were quite receptive. In fact, they asked me to come the following week because I'd gone there with one of my colleagues the first week, and they asked me to try and come the second week to have a discussion. I've had football clubs. I've had Dominica Football Association have me talk to the young men and young women. So engage us.
But and it cannot be a one-off thing. It needs to be a. It needs.
And that's the thing. So and because now we don't have a lot of mental health specialists around, as I tell you, there's a few psychologists that are wrong. And right now we are saying, yo, if I'm coming to do a presentation for you because I have to put it together, pay for my gas.
Give me a stipend.
Give me a little stipend. We don't asking you for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Just pay for my little gas. I live at Gliston, Jodel, and I come down on a little Saturday because I'm supposed to be doing my laundry and taking care of my house. Just give me a little stipend for them to feel a little incentivized, if we want to call it that way.
Well, no,
But
but
you
you have
have
bills
the
to pay
conversation.
too. You have bills
Huh?
to pay too. You have bills to
Exactly.
pay too.
So you do it. And I don't mind because sports club have asked me to come and have conversations. So many organizations have asked me to do presentation on psychological stuff and so on. And I'm happy to do it because I want people to get the information. That's how we're going to change the whole dynamic of how things are working. If your children don't have the conversation with someone, somebody who pulls them up. I've had young children meet me on the street. Mr. Guy, you don't remember me? No, I don't remember you. You was my school and you said something and I really thought I'm making sense and so on. You understand? So we have to engage them. We have to engage them at the faith-based level. We have to engage them at the community level. We have to engage them at the school level. We have to just engage them. That's how the information is. Because the children are not going to look for the information on their own, Jael. They won't.
You have to bring it to
PTA,
them.
ask the schools to have us come to the PTA meetings and talk to them, and then let the parents get a feel of what we're talking about. So when we say we want to talk to your children, they don't feel like we want to talk to the children of something that's over their head. Engagement, engagement, engagement. And if we're not engaging our children like how you're engaging your son, he's gonna go up and get it on the street, and he's gonna get it wrong on the street.
Well, I think the what I bring to my home table is the fact that I lived in a different country and I understand certain things differently. And sometimes I utilize things I learned in another country and I implement it in my home because I've seen how it works and how it benefits. Like certain things that people put a lot of emphasis on. You see, like cursing. Parents in Dominica don't let children to curse. Me, man, you can drop as many f bombs as you like. You expressing yourself, as far as I'm concerned. That is not my concern. My concern is, are you well? Are you okay? How do you feel? That's my concern because those F bombs tell me how you feel. When you drop it at certain times, it's telling me how you feel. So why I want you to do for yourself when I feel that that will tell me how you feel, right? I always say don't cuss at people, but if you frustrate, you doing a homework and you're not getting through, and you say what you have to say, you say your you drop your bombs, your French words. Sometimes I just shake my head because sometimes I just hate too much. But that's not my priority. My priority is to make sure that when those F bombs drop, I know, okay, Giovanni's struggling with this. Let me go help him. Right? Instead of him staying in his room and mumbling and not sure, of what to do. I think our priorities are because, sorry to say, Shervin, I know you're very religious. I think that we have created a society that is so religious. We think that everything we everything we waiting for God to do it for us, but God only helps those who help themselves. Right? He only helps those who help themselves. So so in so doing, I don't wait for God to do things for me. I ask, right? But I also move towards getting a resolve, right? We cannot just sit there and expect us to say two Hail Mary or speak two tongues or do something where and it's going to solve the problem. That have a max. What they just do? What is the thing where they just try and take off the demons in people because it just says demon they have when an exorcist, exorcism thing. These things are very much things of the past. These are things that are very outdated, and we need to move in ways that we are understanding more of people. We're understanding more of people's emotions. And we allow people to express themselves. We allow people, and we live in a society, especially in the small islands in the Caribbean, where you cannot express yourself. When I was growing up in school, everybody would say, "Oh, you're loud. You're a vermin." You know the amount of times I get that I was loud, and people should say, "Oh, a lady should not be should be seen and not heard." You know the amount of times I heard that a lady should be seen. Well, I'm not a lady. Okay, I'm not a lady. I'm an AD. Okay, without the L. Right? I feel like we need to. And thankfully, I had parents who understood those things, and they were able to say, "You know what? You're going to use your mouth to benefit," and they didn't discourage me. Imagine if they discouraged me, I probably would not have a show today. Right? And there are a lot of people who are in those exact same. A lot of men who are in those exact situations where they're discouraged, they're forced back into their shells, they're forced to not be themselves. They're told you use a vagabond, you behaving like your father, like all of these things. we tell them instead of nurturing them and showing them love.
Instead, we motivate
Yeah,
them and
yeah, yes,
break down.
yes, yes. This conversation is 9:01. I want us to be able to continue this conversation. I know it has been a great conversation, and I truly appreciate both of you for coming on. And thank you very much, Shervin, for bringing it up, because you were the one. Next time, make sure you have a headphone, okay? So next time we come on here, make sure you have a headphone, especially if you're coming on your iPhone. Make sure you have a headphone. Um, and Mr. Guy, I want to say thank you very much. You know, for I know your schedule is busy, but you always drop everything to come on when necessary. You know, whether it was for Riasta the other day or whether it's now, and we need a lot more like you. But we also need a lot more men studying what you study, you know, and coming back to Dominica, you know. And I feel like I'm making an appeal to the government when they offer scholarships to kind of segment it out based on needs. You know, don't we don't need to send Pache people to study to be this and to study, and I'm not calling no names there, because people will jump on my throat, and when they jump on my throat, you know, you come for me, I'll come for you. But we need to be able to segment it out where we say there's a need for more psychologists, there's a need for more this person, there's a need for more that person, and that way we are organizing for scholarships for these things, because we are seeing the gaps in our society. And I mean, there should be no reason why we should only have one male psychologist in a country. Right, we need more, right?
Yeah, we did.
So, guys, it was a really nice experience. I hope that some of the information I've shared is beneficial to someone who was out there listening. And I know probably a lot of times women listen on. You know, just have a conversation with your man. Just ask them how can you support them. Most times, if you tell them
I love
how you can help them, a lot of them feel that, well, you want to help me to do what actually? But just ask them, how can I support you? And I was telling that to a communication specialist today. And when you ask somebody, how can I support you? It's more likely they tell you, well, that's where I need support.
well, if you know anything about men don't think that they need help. Men's role is to protect and provide. And anytime you talk about help, it means that you're taking that away from them. So I love that you say support. How can I support you?
So
Ladies
let
on the
your,
left, hear
so
that?
let your next hashtag be, how can I support you? I'm
How
giving it to you.
I support you.
All
Right?
right?
How can I support you? That's wonderful. Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you very
You guys
much,
are welcome. All
listeners.
right? Have a
Have
good one.
fun.
Good luck.
And we're gonna continue this conversation another time. We'll let you guys know. We'll keep you in the loop. Adieu. We're going for now. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
I get up.
Boy, I hungry.
Wait, come see that. Take advantage of Perky's Pizza's college student discount. Spend $10 to $50 and get 10% off, or spend $51 and up for a 15% discount. Flash your ID and save big today.